Hello to everyone listening to us. I'm Renata, the conference host, and today our guest is Leslie Potter. So, for those of you who don't know Leslie yet, she's a trained therapist and a parent coach. Leslie supports parents and helps them to find their inner strength while parenting. She's also the creator of Parenting Post, a parenting podcast, which I'm listening to, and the founder and creator of the Purejoy Parenting model. Thank you for joining us, Leslie.
You're welcome. It's always lovely to talk with you, Renata.
So, just before we start, I have a question for you, a very serious question.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
just before I wanted to call you, my son asked me, is Leslie anyhow, somehow, in the most remote way related to Harry Potter? And just before you answer, consider that depending on your answer, I might be a hero to my son, someone who talks with someone related to Harry Potter, or just an ordinary mom. So now you can answer.
Oh, wow. That's a nice setup, Renata.
Yeah, I know.
Well, when my daughter was young, because our name is Potter, people would ask her all the time, where was Harry?
Yeah.
And so I told her to tell them, he's standing right here. Can't you see him? Because he has his
Yeah,
invisibility cloak on.
exactly. Exactly.
So I'll just say that I know Harry very well, but you probably can't see him because he has
Okay.
his invisibility cloak on. But many young children want me to adopt them so they can have the last name Potter. All the kids in my neighborhood. Like, can I be, can you adopt me and then I can be Harry Potter's sister or brother?
Can I at least have your name?
Exactly. So it is all about magic. So I'll just keep magic in the air. You can tell him he'll have to meet me to find out.
Okay, I'm gonna tell him that, and I'm gonna hold this illusion of still being somehow related to, Harry Potter's relative. So that's good. Thank you, Leslie.
Why not?
I wanted to talk with you today about emotions because many parents ask me, how and what to do with all those emotions. So maybe we can start by, talking about what are emotions. What are they?
Well, even more than that, I want to give a metaphor that we're going to use
Please.
during our talk today. So we're going to use the metaphor of the ocean. Okay, so the ocean you're going to say is who you are, who your child is, right? And within that ocean, there are many waves. Okay, so waves come and they go depending on the external circumstances in the ocean, right? So it's the same thing with children, with you. When we're calm, we have this beautiful, calm ocean, but it doesn't mean that those feelings don't live there. They're still in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just aren't triggered in the moment. So in a calm ocean, it feels like everything's at peace and it's wonderful. And then we as parents have this fantasy that that's how it's always going to be. We're looking for that security and that safety, right? But that would be crazy in the ocean. You're going to find times in the ocean where it's calm and it's safe, but then you're going to find other times in the ocean where there's small waves and then there's big waves. So we're going to say the waves are the feelings. They are part of who we are. They just come and they go. They aren't who we are. We are all of it. We're the ocean. So I like to use that metaphor so parents can actually see that when the waves come, they're not often dangerous. Now, if you have a tsunami, it can feel dangerous, right? But what we begin to learn, what usually happens is when our child acts out, some of those waves start to come, especially the anger waves, especially the aggressive waves or the behavior, but they're going to be, the aggressive waves are going to be coming from the child feeling powerless. So when those waves start to come, then we identify and we think the child is aggressive. We
Mm-hmm.
attach to a label versus, oh, my child is feeling powerless in this moment. Okay. So if I learned to ride my own feelings of powerlessness, which is I found I had to do before I could support my daughter, I had to be willing to ride my own waves of powerlessness. Because if I didn't, and my child's wave started, I began to identify with that I was a powerless parent. And when I felt like I was a powerless parent, then I wanted to overpower my child and stop their waves, which is
Mhm.
impossible, right? But we try, and it's just crazy. Think about in the ocean if the wave comes and you don't like it and you try to stop it, it's impossible.
Mm.
And yet, even in that metaphor, we can learn how to dive underneath the wave. That's what they teach you in the ocean. So if a big wave is coming, you don't try to go on top of it. You don't try to repress it. You don't fight it. You don't resist it. You actually dive into it and go under it. Right. But we don't do that as parents. When we feel powerless and we identify with, I need to be powerful because I'm the parent, we literally that's why it's so painful and we suffer so much because we're trying to do something that's actually impossible, which is to control a wave and to get it to stop, right? So in my work, what I teach parents first of all is we have to, because if our child's waves are starting, then that's going to trigger our waves, right? Because their waves will trigger our wave, and then we have to know how to dive underneath our big waves instead of again trying to get on top of them, trying to repress them, trying to act in certain ways, right? We have to dive under to remember who we are, which is the ocean where these experiences are coming and going. Feelings come and go. You probably felt something when you woke up this morning, right?
Right.
Now you're on the call with me and you probably feel something else,
Yes.
right? So it just came. But if you identified in the morning, if you felt really sad or, like low, whatever you were feeling, and you carried that with you, you would think that you were a sad person.
Mm.
No, you just experienced sadness, let's say, if you woke up with that. But then all of a sudden, then you see my bright face and we connect. And all of a sudden, a wave of happiness comes, right? And it's
I,
like, that's not going to last either.
that's very difficult to not identify with these emotions and feelings because we tend to think
Yes.
about ourselves. I am an angry person, right? Instead of I feel anger. Um,
Yes.
and I think it might help to understand why those waves come in the first place. Why do we experience all those emotions?
Well, let's talk about the ocean. Okay, so the ocean's calm, and then the moon turns a certain way, or the tide. There's something external that happens, and then that creates waves in the ocean. So there are external stimulus, even in the ocean, that activate different waves. Temperature drops. Um, I don't know so much about the ocean, but I know there's all kinds of things that'll create a hurricane or create small waves, but it's all about temperature. It's all about the moon tides. It's all about in and out. So there are external stimulus that come into this ocean. Here I am, this ocean that actually activate. I like to think of waves as being part of my life force
Mm,
because we get really tired of the really calm ocean. If you go to the ocean and it's calm all the time, you start to get really bored.
mm,
Like you do. Kids start off wanting really calm, and then the
yeah.
older they get, they want to go further in the ocean and they want the bigger waves and they want the bigger waves, and it's more fun. That's life. It's life force. That's like, oh, I'm not just this one constant thing that I convince myself of. Now, the reason we identify with is because we're told that. Instead of someone saying, oh, you're having a wave of anger. Whoa, wow, that is big. It's huge. Whoa, man, that's intense. And that would be diving under. We're naming it, we're recognizing it. We look at the child and say, you're rude, you're mean, you are aggressive, you are bad.
Mm,
So the child then in the mind starts to grab onto every time that wave comes up. I have a story that says, I'm a bad person or I'm a mean
mm,
person. And then we're really smart and we recognize mean people, bad things happen to them. Love gets withdrawn. People punish them and consequence them. They do like like everything that we're wanting, which is to be seen, heard, and understood, starts to get shut down once we're named as the mean person, right? People tell
Mm,
me all the times, I have a really mean child. I had one the
mm,
other day. She said, she's just mean. She's so mean. And it's like, well, okay, but she might be acting mean. So I'm so curious what triggered her ocean to have a mean wave. Okay. So
mm,
that's diving under. If we just see the mean wave and we name the child, you're just mean and you need to stop, and I'm going to consequence you and I'm going to punish you, that's trying to get rid of the wave. Diving under says, whoa, you're experiencing a wave right now, and I'm calling it mean, right? But if I go under my label of mean, I'm going to see what was the impetus. That's when we take responsibility as adults. It's usually me. I'm usually the impetus that triggers my daughter's waves, right? Because I might be pushing her, pulling her, forcing her. I have an agenda. I need to be a good
mm,
parent, So I'm poking into her ocean. I'm making the temperature go up. And of course, she gets a wave, and her wave is big and it's, angry. We name it. I just started thinking the other day, Renata, like, who even named feelings? I don't know when that started. I mean, basically, you just start to feel something in your body, like you
mm,
have a stomach ache or something, and you don't really know where it comes from. You don't even know it's a stomach ache. You just know you have sensations, right? So if I'm pushing on my daughter, her body starts to have sensations because something's happening in her ocean because I'm, putting something into it. And so naturally, a wave comes up. But the minute I label that wave as bad and wrong and
mm,
mean and rude, that's me on top trying to stop the wave. Okay. So if we really want to be with our waves, like you say, when I have a wave, I safe seat, and I shared the safe seat last time, and I'll share that gift link for you for folks. I began to recognize that I had to go to who I truly am. That's what the safe seat is for me. I had to remember I am the ocean. Okay. That's the big part. I had to remember I'm actually the ocean, and a big wave is happening in me right now. And I can either dive under it and ask myself what triggered this wave,
mm,
and I can be with it, or I can do to myself what was done to me. I can start saying, oh, you are so bad. You are so rude. You are so mean. You're so selfish. So then internally, I'm again trying to repress the wave instead of, as the ocean, recognizing that, oh, I just got triggered by my daughter's wave, her temperature going up triggered my temperature to go up. So as the adult, I want to be able to show her that I can ride my waves. I don't repress them. I don't beat myself up. I don't self-aggress. I For me, I go to my safe seat and I ride the wave. I like, whoa, the temperature is really hot right now and my ocean's really stirring up. Okay. I'm going to stay with that. I'm going to dive under. I'm not going to repress it. And I, the reason I can do that is because I am absolutely clear that it's going to pass. Because a wave has to. A wave comes up and it goes down and it crashes. Right? So when I'm absolutely certain, and I am, look at the ocean. Have you ever seen an ocean freeze, a
mm,
wave freeze?
mm.
Right?
No.
You're absolutely certain that the wave is going to come up and it's going to come down and return back to the ocean. So, in knowing that inside myself, I'm able to go to a safe place, which is my safe seat, and live in reality and ride the intensity of my feeling instead of acting it out with my child. But yes, if your child's wave is big, it's going to trigger a wave in you. That's just like the temperature rises. Yeah, you just got to know how to be with your waves. And then if you are, then you'll start to teach your children through example of how they can be with their waves.
And
Waves aren't bad.
They are just waves, I know, but still we tend to name or label these strong feelings as negative, or we don't want them. So we still tend to label or name those feelings like negative or positive, and we try to avoid those negative feelings. We don't like them. We don't like what it does to ourselves. Do they have a purpose, even those negative feelings? When I get anxious, does it serve me? Does it send me a message about anything?
Yeah, it's always sending a message. I mean, again, like that is our work, is to interpret the messages of the sensations, I would say. I
Mm,
don't even go to the feeling, but the sensation in the
mm,
body. Okay. So fortunately and unfortunately, we have a brain that reads signals depending on memory. Okay,
mm,
depending on our past memory. And we have something called an amygdala. Daniel Siegel does the brain like a fist. And so down here is the amygdala, and that is the primal brain. So that comes with us from, he says, hundreds and thousands of
mm,
years ago. Okay, so the brain has that stem that when it starts to feel stimulation in the body, it can activate a very, very primal memory, right?
mm,
And the primal memory says danger, right? Because back then it was very dangerous even to walk out of your cave. You could be eaten by a dinosaur or
mm,
whatever. So it was much more on that level. Well, our children are much more in their primal brains. Okay, they haven't developed. We have the
mm,
primal brain, the amygdala. We have the limbic brain, which is more the emotional brain, and then we have the executive center, which is a more of our adult brain. That's when we're in reality more. We can see it. Okay, children live much more in their amygdala and their primal brain. This doesn't totally function. The executive center doesn't totally function. They're finding it until the late 20s, right? So children have it, but as Daniel Siegel says, often their lids are getting flipped. Okay, so you say no to candy and boom, the lid flips. They can't understand that candy is bad for them and they're going to get cavities and all the things you want to tell them. They just go down into this primal brain that says, I'm going to die if I don't get candy. And to us, we go rational and we get mad at them. We label them as greedy and demanding, but actually, they're just down in this primal brain.
yeah.
Right. And for us, if we don't know how to ride that energy and talk to the primal brain and then talk to the limbic brain, we go up into our executive center and we start trying to reason and rationalize with them. We try
Mm,
to make meaning. We come to conclusions. That means my child's demanding. That means my child's never going to be able to work because they won't be able to take lessons from the boss. I mean, we go to the craziest future, right?
mm,
Because when they're in the amygdala, they are going to activate ours. It's called attunement. We
mm,
keep hearing about attunement. Well, if your child's in their amygdala, you're going to attune with your amygdala. And if you don't know how to work with it, and if you haven't worked with it, if you still are living very much in your primal brain, which a lot of us are, it's hard to grow that up, then it's like a duel. Both of you feel endangered now by your child's feelings,
mm,
right? And your child feels endangered by yours, because the amygdala is always about right or wrong,
mm,
about survival. It's like you or me. That's the amygdala. So if your child's in the amygdala and then you get in the amygdala with them, that's when you're going to have the battle. You're going to have to take them out, not physically, but emotionally. You're going to have to shame them. You're going to have to blame them. You're going to have to consequence. You have to win if you're in
mm,
the amygdala. And then afterwards you wake up and you go, oh my God, what did I just do? I just annihilated on an emotional level my child, right? So that I could survive, so I could feel okay.
mm,
Now, this is when our guilt and our shame comes in, and then we just like beat ourselves up instead of going, well, of course that happened. I was in my amygdala and I forgot to check it out as an adult. I forgot to pause. I forgot to find out, am I really in danger? That's a skill set that little ones do not have. You do not gain that skill set till you sit with yourself. You can sit in your safe seat till you have a parent that understands that you're in your amygdala and they're with you, right? Because they're in their executive functioning. They know it's just a wave right now. It's not about the candy. It's about the amygdala. That was a stimulus. Wanting that candy and hearing no stimulated this big wave.
Mm.
Okay. So if the parent knows that and they're able to attune to the amygdala but not act out of it, they immediately work with themselves in the safe seat. They calm themselves. They get up into their frontal lobes up here, their executive center. They can go, oh, my child is in a primal state. My child is terrified, and someone said, "What it's just around candy." It has nothing to do with the candy. It has to do with the brain they're in. They're in the primal brain, right? And if we're not in our primal brain and we can see that, of course we would want to support our children and help them move up the staircase, as Daniel Siegel says, from the downstairs brain. We would want to start supporting them to move into their upstairs brain. But if we're threatened, we don't. We want to take them out. And we don't even mean to. It's so innocent. If we're in that primal brain, it won't see your kid. It won't see your kid as struggling. It's going to see danger. It's going
Yeah.
to see your child as a threat. And if
Mm.
you perceive a threat, it is totally intelligent to take that threat out. If
Mm.
a tiger's coming after you in your brain, it's not appropriate, but it's intelligent for the brain to try to destroy the enemy or the threat.
So how do we do that? I mean, I am in front of my child who is having a wave,
Yeah.
and then I'm attuning to it instantly. I mean, I'm all in my amygdala too. How do I gain this, I don't know, 2 3 precious seconds to stop myself into going into acting and being my child's, this executive center?
Yeah, for me, it really was a practice. I had to retrain myself because I had gotten so used to being in my amygdala and I was living so much out of memory. I wasn't able to actually bring myself to my
Mhm.
adult nature. So for me, I created the safe seat. Would you like me to share it again? I know I did last time.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
because you'll have new people this time. But for me, I created a seat for myself where I could take myself. And so my discipline for literally for about a year was to, instead of attacking, was to turn around and go to a safe base or a base for myself where I could get so I wouldn't act out. Okay. And so I think I told you last time, but I'll explain it again. I based it on the game of tag. And
Mm.
so when children play tag, they run around and they're chasing each other and they're having a best time ever until the first time they're about to get tagged. And if they're 3 or 4 years old, they freak out. Their brain gets a signal that goes into their amygdala because they're not old enough. They haven't played the game enough to know that, this is fun. Their
Mm.
brain goes, danger. And so the child will either hit the tagger, they'll often lay down on the ground and say, I'm sick, or they'll run off the field and to their mama and say they don't want to play. They'll do all kinds of things from
Mm.
the amygdala. So in the game of tag, what we create is a safe base.
Mm.
And when I grew up, it was a tree. We would create a tree
Mm.
that you could go to when you were about to get tagged. So we set it up. So I like to set parents up that way. I like to tell them, this is a game in a way. You're going to be playing the parent child game. Okay. And you are going to get triggered. Absolutely. We're totally, the opposite is we're trying not to get triggered. Okay, so I tell parents, this is the game. You're going to have a great time. You're going to be loving your child. It's going to be great. And then you're going to get tagged. Okay, so there's lots of things you can do when you get tagged. You can yell at your child, just like yelling at the tagger. You can go, forget it. I don't even want to play this game anymore and run off. You can pretend like you're sick. You can do, these are all our strategies, right? Because we're in our amygdala. Or you can go to your safe base. You can go to the base that you're going to create for yourself. So I recommend that parents create a safe or a base. Mine was on my couch. It's got to be in the action. It's not a meditation, go away.
Mm.
It's right in the middle of the action. Mine was on my couch. And I began to practice instead of acting out on her, instead of, avoiding. And I did all of those. I yelled at her. I just went, forget it. Just do what you want. I did everything that the young child does in the game. I started practicing just running over to the couch. I literally would have to run over there sometimes. And then once I got to the safe base, just like the children do in the game, you start breathing. And the child starts to take a breath because no one's after them. The brain recognizes that it's got a moment to stop. There's no danger coming towards you. Okay. And as I would breathe, I would hear the voice inside that would go, oh my God, she won't listen to me. And I want her to listen to me. Just like the kids, like, oh, it was so scary. And I would hear that one. And I would say, oh, honey, of course that was scary. And of course you want her to listen. So now I'm just meeting the limbic brain, because now I'm moving up into the limbic brain, which is the emotional brain, which is telling me how I'm feeling and making up all kinds of stories. She wouldn't listen to me. I don't feel good. I don't like being rejected. Blah, 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 blah. Now I'm listening to that part instead of trying to get my daughter to hear me, right? With what she's doing to me, right? How many of us have done that, right? And so I'm going, of course, honey. Oh, sweetheart, you were just, wanting her to listen to you. That's so important. I get it. And then as I soothe, just like the child on the tree, I began to soothe, just like the child at the tree, they look out and they go, oh, in reality, this is a game. And that's the fun thing, is to go back out there and do it again over and over and over until finally they want to be the tagger, right? So when I was soothed, then I could look out and go, oh, there's no danger out there.
Mm.
My daughter's doing what she's doing, or she's busy with her show, or it's not about me. She's not threatening me, right? Because when I think she's threatening me, that's when I go into my amygdala, right? It's the survival brain. It's all about me. And then when I come back all the way through, then I can recognize, oh, she needs me, or oh, she's going through a wave. And I can show up in my executive center now because I'm seeing reality. And I can actually guide my daughter through that exact process. I can become the base for her to come. And when she's making up all kinds of stories, you're so mean, I hate you, and you won't give me candy. I can go, oh, honey, I know you want that candy so bad, don't you? It tastes so good, and you thought I was going to give it to you, and oh, honey, and you're feeling sad, whatever, but I'm doing it genuinely. It's not to make anything, it's truly genuine now, because I know that part of her needs to be seen, heard, and understood. Instead of, if you ask me for candy one more time, you're not going to get any candy ever. And I'm going to take care of, all the things we do from our amygdala, right? So now I'm really genuinely compassionate because I'm not feeling threatened. So if you're not feeling, your me is not feeling threatened, you will have compassion for the other because they're the one struggling. You aren't.
Exactly.
And then, right? So then I can talk to her limbic brain, which will bring her more into her executive center. And then we can say, and the reality is, here's a carrot, or you can have anything in the fridge, right? But the reality is right now, I'm not offering candy. But they're not going to be able to hear that if they're in that amygdala or the limbic brain, which is the emotional brain. And like I say, anytime someone's emotional, don't believe anything they say. And parents get caught on that. I hate you. Well, why do you hate me? I'm such a nice man. It turns into us. You just go, oh, I know. Of course you feel that. Of course you don't like that. So that is a practice. I've been practicing for 20 years,
Wow.
sitting in my safe seat, and I still get triggered. But it's very fast now. My daughter and I, we can still do it. And then it's really quick because I know where to go. It's just that I forgot to go to my safe seat. I forgot that there was a place that I was acting out of a story. I wasn't acting out of truth.
You always teach about, going inside. That's what I love about your work. but you never ever try to look outside, like, oh, I got triggered because of you, you said something or you did something. So we never look for circumstances or people to blame. You're always saying, just have a look inside and what's going on inside.
The
Because it's
reason
much
why
easier to
is,
blame others.
well, the reason why is blaming is a very young developmental piece. Like when your kid is little and they run into the table, they're going to blame the table. I mean, it's just young developmentally, right? So if you're blaming people, you're in a very young space, right? Developmentally, which many of us didn't learn to grow ourselves up. So the reason you'll know that the external's not to blame is because you're going to have a totally different response when your kids cuss than I am or your partner, right? So let's say your kids do a swear word and I don't have anything inside. There's nothing there for me because I think it's funny or whatever, it doesn't bother me. But maybe you think you feel disrespected, you think it's horrible, you feel powerless, you feel rejected. And then the next person's going to feel something else. So we might have all had the same external stimulus, which was the child swearing, but our internal experience comes from our history, from our conditioning, from what's going on inside of us, how we interpret it. Okay, so that's why you know that the child is not causing it, so they can't fix it. They are just triggering something, and they can trigger joy too. And then the next person could not like it, but it makes me laugh. And kids, when my daughter was poopy butt and all that stuff for years, I thought it was just the best. My neighbor wanted her to stop. It was very disturbing for her.
Well,
So that's why
usually when we trigger joy, we found it normal, yeah. But when it's pain or anger or shame or whatever, when we are like, I just wanted to stop. And when I go deep inside and I am looking for what has been triggered, what if we are totally unprepared for what we are fighting? I mean, what if we find something so big, so that hurts so much, coming from, let's say, our childhood? What to do with it?
Well, I think it's really, really important to get support, right? If you notice that and it feels overwhelming, there's been a lot of traumatic things that have happened. We've all had trauma, but certain ones may hit a really deep place. And if you don't feel you have that capacity, if it does feel overwhelming, reach out, reach out to a coach or a therapist, or there's a lot of trauma people. I don't believe in, suffering alone, right? Or trying to, I mean, I do because I'm one of those, but I found when I really did hit one of those, the gift was to share that vulnerability with someone else. Like I have small groups, and we have, small groups of 6 to 8 people. And when you share it with someone, it just releases more. You don't feel so alone, because you usually find that other people have had similar experiences, or they took it in similarly. And so, yeah, I really support people if it feels too much to actually, because it's the same. If you go internal, external, most people, it's too much. If you're yelling and screaming and hitting your children, you are not a bad person. That's an indicator that something is too much inside and you don't know how to work with your internal experience. It's not that your kids are bad. It's not that your kids are making you into a crazy person. They are triggering. So I always support people. Yeah, to get we're kind of scared of, we're scared of support in this culture because it might mean something bad. But no, it's like, if you want to learn to surf the waves in the ocean, you get a teacher. Usually you get someone that's a master surfer, and they'll guide you how to go under or to ride the top. It's the same thing. That's what I do, people. I just teach people how to ride waves, not to get rid of them, or how to work with the waves inside themselves.
You mentioned doing breathing when you are at your safe seat. I noticed that whenever I do, take breathe in, breathe out, part of me is also trying to repress the emotion. So I am breathing, and then my brain, I guess, is like, okay, but I want it to go away. So now like I'm kind of
So,
in the middle of accepting emotion, and still part of me is like, okay, stop, 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 go away. Now it's enough. I have been breathing for 5 minutes. Now it's enough.
so then you meet that, so then that's the moment. And you say, well, of course you do. Of course you want it to go away. This is hard. And of course it feels like it's too much right now. You just talk to right where you are. You say, yeah, of course you do. You weren't taught to do this, and this is difficult. And it would be easier to go yell at your kid or to try to control something. Of course, I get that. So then you just meet it instead of objecting to it. You meet, just that's how we learn to go under the waves. We meet whatever is, right? So for 1 minute, I want to do it. I want to breathe. Now I don't. Well, of course you want to breathe. Now you don't. Well, of course you don't want to breathe. It feels too much. And just naming the truth versus, well, you should breathe, Renata. You know that you're not going to get any better unless you breathe, right? Instead of just meeting yourself. Well, of course, I get it. Okay, so stop then. I mean, that's our autonomy and our sovereignty. If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
But it all seems so simple when I listen to you. I mean, and it's so hard to do it. I know, because I mean, I'm trying every day.
Yeah.
How do you find this compassion for your whole self? I mean, not just for this part that I accept, but especially for this part that, I guess I don't like about myself. How do you find this compassion? Like, of course, Renata, when I hear you saying it, it feels so love. I mean, I feel so loved, but I can't find this voice in my head.
Because you were trained. You were trained to beat yourself up instead of to offer compassion. So you have an identification with who you're not. You're identifying with the wave at that moment instead of identifying with the ocean. So, a master pianist takes years to learn their craft. So if you think of the emotions as being a piano or something that you want to master, you're not going to get it right away. Pianists, I'm sure they hate practicing and it's probably tedious and oh my God, and they get better and then they get worse. I mean, if you just think of any master, right, they're willing to go through the challenges. They probably beat themselves up when they mess up and then they come back. So for me, the commitment was just basically getting to the seat. So if I got to my seat, I kind of think of my seat as being the seat of unconditional love. That is my wholeness. So if I could take a part of myself and sit it down in the seat, what I began to notice was the seat began to do the work for me. And eventually I become the act of kindness, but the seat is the kind seat. And even if I'm beating myself up, the seat is well, of course you're beating yourself up. Why? And that's what you learned to do. Why wouldn't you? How's that feel? You want to keep doing it? I don't know. I'm right here with you.
So now you get triggered by your seat, which is amazing.
Right. And then eventually, you don't have to go to a chair. I go to the seat early on. I tell people, so you actually have a movement, like in the game. You don't just stop and go, say, the person will tag you. You have to run to something. And, for me, I always grabbed onto the tree. That was like, I could stay with something. I could sit in my seat until reality began to truly reveal itself, which means my brain began to come out of fight or flight or freeze or fawn they have now. My brain began to slow down enough. But I had to talk to my limbic brain because when I'm in my amygdala, it just never wants to stop. It goes into disaster scenarios and fantasies about the future being tragic. It's really, really creative and big and juicy. So I had to be just like, well, of course. No, honey. but I'm never agreeing with the stories that that part of me is telling myself. I'm never agreeing because I might say, I'm just the worst mother in the whole world. I just yelled at my child. No, honey, of course you feel that way because you didn't want to do that. You didn't want to hit your child or you didn't want to yell at your child. You love your child. I know. And that part just going, oh yeah, somebody sees my ocean. Somebody sees who I truly am.
And
And they're reminding me.
I guess what you are also saying is that no matter who we are and where we come from, the work is never done. I mean, there is no day in our life and we can say we are done, we are perfect, we don't experience any uncomfortable emotion, we know it all. I mean, we are
Yeah,
still human.
but
So
think about the ocean. I don't think the ocean thinks it's work. There's no work. I mean, it's just count on,
mm,
waves coming in your ocean. So that's where we get caught in the fantasy that one day we will be in a totally calm ocean.
mm.
And that's not reality. Reality is always shifting and changing. Every moment you wake up new. Every moment there's a new stimulus coming in, right? That could activate a wave. Right. So if we don't see it as work, as we just see it as, oh, this is who I am, this is reality, then the work is trying to stop reality. The work is trying to live in a fantasy.
So many of us still want to control, our
Of course,
emotions, what
you were
people
taught to.
say, think, or do to us.
You were taught to do that. That's what your parents thought, that you caused their pain, and therefore, if you behaved, you would fix it.
I also love because you have a different perspective on boundaries. And we talked a little bit about it last time, but I wanted to share again, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
the way you see setting boundaries, because it's not about others, it's about us.
Yes.
Can you go into more details?
Sure. And we'll go from the wave metaphor. My definition of a healthy boundary is what's okay with me and what's not okay with me about how I treat myself,
Mm,
not how my daughter treats me or anyone else. It's how I treat myself. So let's say a stimulus comes in, meaning she doesn't listen to me or whatever. And then all of a sudden a wave starts rising where I start to hear myself say, well, I just don't matter. I'm not important. Because if I really mattered, she would be nice to me or she would love me after I blamed her. If I really go deep, I'm going, I don't feel like I matter. I'm not important.
mm,
Okay. So that becomes my boundary, is like, well, why would I believe that about myself?
mm,
Because if I believe that, I have to look for evidence that that is true everywhere.
mm,
Okay. So my healthy boundary is when a stimulus does come in, I listen to the story that I'm making up about myself and I go, is that true? And I always come to, no, it's not true, that I'm not important. The truth is, I'll come to, is that she had her headphones on.
mm,
Or a little one, they were playing their game and they were invested.
mm,
It has nothing to do with me and my
mm,
self-worth. So I began to recognize that I was setting boundaries on my daughter to try to keep my waves from happening,
mm,
right? Because I was so scared of my waves and my self-aggression. So instead of telling my daughter what she could do or not do to me, I began to go, well, what am I doing to me when her wave comes up?
mm,
Right? Because that's hers. And that's just her wave. She'll have to learn to work with it. But I'm telling myself, first of all, I tell myself I got a terrible child or a mean, aggressive child. And then the second layer is, oh, if that's true, that means I'm a piece of crap. There's something wrong with me. So instead of setting boundaries outside, I started setting a boundary inside of, Leslie, that you are telling yourself a lie about you. And when I do that, then I don't need to set a boundary for her. I can come alongside her and support her in learning how to ride her waves or dive under her waves, or to recognize that I'm not the cause of them. I can't fix it, but I triggered it. So that's how I'm growing up, the emotional story. It's like a new story in a way. It's a truer story that I can set healthy boundaries. And then with her, I'm always like, good for you for asking. If she asks me for something, right? Let's say your child asks you for something, but it triggers a feeling of lack in you because they
Mhm.
want something big, and or even they want candy. Let's go with candy, and it triggers something in you. And you might tell yourself a story like, well, if I give my kid candy, that means I'm a bad mother and I'm a terrible mother and I should control my whatever. And that's where I have to set the boundary. I go, no, 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 wait a minute. None of that's true. I'm who I am. And then I go, do I want to offer them candy or not? Because all they're doing is asking for it. I don't have to decide if it's good or bad or whatever. I can just go, oh, they just asked me for candy. And do I want to offer it to them? No, actually, I don't. Oh, sweetheart, of course you want candy. I hear you. Candy's so good. And right now, I'm willing to offer you carrots or something, like I say, in the fridge or snack or whatever, but I'm not offering candy right now. That triggers a wave in them. Okay. It's not about me because I'm very clear about my boundary. But my boundary now will trigger them, right? And they may call me mean and tell me I'm a terrible mother. Okay. I know that's how it feels. Remember, I don't believe those stories when it's emotional
Mm.
because I've set a healthy boundary instead of going, no, don't you ask me for candy. And no, you know candy's bad for you and you can't have candy. That just talk about activating a wave, right?
What
So
about, um, let's say, homework? Your child comes to you and says, I don't want to do my homework. How do
she
you,
don't. I'm like, well, let's do it. Of course you don't. Tell me about it. What do you not like about homework?
and then,
Keep
I mean,
going. You be here.
it's
And
like,
we'll work it out. Right
I,
now, tell me. You be the kid. What do you not like about homework?
I just want to go and play with my, friends. I
I
don't want to do
know.
that. I want to have my free time and want to play with my friends.
Of course you do. Your free time is your highest value, and homeworks are really, really hard. It's hard to slow yourself down and
Mm.
come and do homework when there's all these ideas and wonderful things that you could be doing. Yeah?
Yeah.
God, I so get it. And you're like, yeah, see, because you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I say, and the reality is that you've got homework, right? But I'm so willing to support you. Like, what do you think you could do? Like, how do you think you could do your homework and then also have your friends? I don't know. I'm here to support you because the reality is you got homework. But of course you want to go play with your friends. And of course you don't want to do it. I get it. And the reality is there's your homework. Right?
And
Do you want to flunk school? They might say, well, I don't want to do homework. Okay, well, what do you think would happen if you don't do your homework? Well, the teacher, okay, well, do you want to have that experience? I don't know. I'm willing to be with you in that, but it's our, if they don't do homework, what do you feel about you? What do you start telling yourself about you if you can't get your
mhm.
kid to do homework?
So you let
Tell
them
me.
explore all
Nope, nope.
possibilities, like,
You
and
don't let them do anything. You aren't in the power position. You don't get to let another human do something or not do something. That's where we get crazy because I can't let them not do homework. It's not yours. So if they don't do homework, let's find yours. If they don't do homework, what do you start telling yourself about you?
like, I'm not being a good mom. I'm too permissive. What if he fails later on? What if he, doesn't succeed in life? What if he doesn't learn how to do his, homework, his duties,
Exactly.
whatever.
Second, now look at that world you're living in. You aren't present with your son at all to find out, or daughter, to find out
Yeah.
why and what's going on for them and how they might help themselves and what do they want in the future and what do they think homework's about. You're not even with them. You
Mhm.
are so wrapped up in your story that you desperately need them to do homework,
Mm.
right? And you'll
So
do
I
almost
would feel
anything.
better.
Yes. And you'll do almost anything to get them to do homework. You'll bribe them, you'll shame them, you'll yell at them, you'll do all of that because you think if they do homework, then you won't have to set a healthy boundary with yourself and say, I'm not going to believe all those things. That's the future. No, that's not true. I'm
Mm.
going to come into the present and show up with my kid and start exploring why homework is hard for them. I did my homework. I know what it did for me, but this is their homework. So
Mm.
why am I trying to project my stuff onto them? Right? So
Right.
then we get curious. Once I've set that healthy boundary, is I'm not going to
Mm.
go to the future. I'm not going to tell myself I'm a bad mom. None of that's true. What's true is I'm uncomfortable right now because I think homework's a good idea and I think they should. And I have all this pressure from the teachers. That's what, all that's true. But I'm going to just to get curious about myself so I can really get curious with them. And then I may be able to walk them through, how they can do both or how homework was going to get them and do they really want that? And then I want them to know themselves, not to know me.
Mm.
And that's very different to raise a child to know themselves, not to know you, what you want for them.
It is. And also to set them free from our expectations or, our plans for them. Just let them be.
Well, don't let them be. Set yourself free from your expectations.
Yeah.
That you can guide them or you can make them into something or you can save them from suffering or you can
Mm.
make sure that they're going to be okay. I mean, that's what I mean. We don't let another human being have their karmic journey or whatever. We
Mm.
can be with them in it, but we keep wanting to overprotect them and make sure that they don't have the experience of the waves in their ocean. Why?
Mm.
We want to teach them how to ride the waves and to work with the waves or be with waves because that's going to happen, guaranteed, over and over and over in their life. Guaranteed. They're not going to live in a calm, peaceful ocean. It's not reality. So I lean on the side of trying to teach myself first how to ride them. And therefore, when my child has them, I can be with them how I was with myself. Right. And
Mm.
then they can walk into life as adults knowing that they're going to feel rejected, feel abandoned, feel powerless. Those are all waves, but they know it's not who they are. They know that they'll come and go. They know it has nothing to do with their ocean or mean who they are. It's just arising within their wholeness.
Mm.
But I had to do it first. I could not give that to my child because I didn't have it.
Exactly. We have to go first.
Yeah, and that's the hard part because we're so conditioned to go into the future, like the future, like he won't do this, and then he won't get a job, and then he won't have a girlfriend, and he won't get married, and then he's gonna live in my basement. That's usually where it ends up for people. And then he's gonna live in my basement. I'm gonna have to take care of him the rest of my life. And really, he's just not doing homework right now, and he's 9, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
let me set a healthy boundary with myself. I'm not going all those places. And I'm going to come back to the reality that if I'm feeling uncomfortable, most likely he is. If
Mm.
I work with my discomfort, then I'll know how to be with his and guide him through. I'll talk to his discomfort from a very different place than talking to it from the future.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're
It's
so welcome,
always a
sweetheart.
pleasure to talk with you.
Yes, and I'll make sure you have a link so people can have a free gift to
Please,
learn
we're
about the
gonna
safe
add it
seat
to the video.
and yeah, and a healthy boundary sheet. I have a sheet on what it looks like to set a healthy boundary and a traditional boundary. So that a little cheat sheet might help you.
Oh, thank you.
All righty. All right, sweetheart. So good to be with you. Thank you to everyone who's watching. I so appreciate everybody being here and opening your hearts and your minds to a little different way.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Have a good
You're
day.
welcome, sweetheart. You too.
Bye.
Bye.